So that's fine.
No, what? Say what you want to say.
Yeah, no, I'm just getting ready to get it going. This is
right.
good.
We need like dun 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 dun. Chaos is thinking. Dun 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 dun. Job is just gonna wait for chaos. Dun 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 dun.
Are we gonna like ding 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 ding? All right, ding 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 ding. Hello. Sure. How are you, my friends? My name is Chaos, and this is my friend Chucky Java, longtime friend. And while those
Hi, Chaos.
Hey, how are you there, Charles?
I'm sorry, I blew my first
Chucky
line.
Java, I should call you. What's that?
You can go with Charles if you like.
And while Chucky Java and Chaos aren't technically our real names, we like to be called that sometimes. And just wanted to kick off our show. We usually talk about things that fall within 4 different categories. We think they're pretty interesting. That would be startup life, parenting, religion, and culture. And
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
I think that we should change the title of parenting to adulting.
Adulting is good.
Because it could include, and I think we ought to cut it to 3 categories. I think it ought to just be adulting
culture.
Startup and culture.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? I'm still in character. I just thought it would be fun to talk about on camera.
All right, I'm changing it. I'm agreeing and saying, yeah, I think that they fall into 4 categories, and I list 3 things. No, right. Into 3 categories, and startup life, adulting, and culture.
Love that.
And we wanted to start with a few things. I think. Actually, I should have had a quote ready.
I have one.
Oh yeah, great. We'll jump in.
It's thank you. It's from Rahm Emanuel, and it's a couple years ago. But Rahm Emanuel is now the just former mayor of Chicago. Actually, has a really interesting new book out. I didn't read it, but I saw him interviewed on The Daily Show and and everywhere else. But anyway, Rahm Emanuel was basically first brought to my attention by when he was Obama's chief of staff for his first term. So basically a big part of getting Obama elected and being a part of that kind of Chicago, what's her name? Jarrett and, you know what I mean? Like David Axelrod and those guys. So anyway, so it was a big part of that Obama crew coming out of being a community organizer and a senator. Anyway, so Rahm Emanuel is famous for saying, you never let a serious crisis go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before. And the follow-up quote, which is that's a 10-year-old quote, I think.
It's a great quote, though. I love it.
I think it was during the Great Recession with the mortgage companies and stuff like that. But the other quote that's more recent is a tweet recently from Andrew Yang, which said, "Where did we get $2 trillion?"
How true is that? When we want to have it, we have it, right?
Exactly. And now all these people are like, well, we got to stop printing money, or we don't. You know what I mean? Right. Like, it's not like the gold standard is in play. Anyway, so
that very conservative Trump that all these conservatives love Trump, but yet debt doesn't seem to matter anymore.
Right, exactly. I think the term conservative has changed.
Yeah, they're just Trumpists now. They're not conservative.
Exactly. Or I've seen that thing like Republican with like KKK in it, like Republican.
Oh gosh, okay.
Yeah, that's a little angry for me, but anyway, as we pitch our point of view on the topic for the first, hopefully, few minutes, you all may pose the provocative question. If we don't answer it, oh, I see. I'm sorry. I blew my line again. As we pitch, let's see. There's a different way. Well, because I want to invite them to pose the provocative question. Okay. So we're basically going to break our show up into 3 acts. What I'm trying to say is we're going to base our show on 3 acts. Basically, the first act is going to be each of our point of view on the topic of the day, which today's topic is business. In business, life throws you curveballs, or curveballs in business, something like that. And that's going to be our point of view on each side of both of that. And then our second act is going to be a provocative question, which we have a provocative question prepared, but we're hoping that you guys will get involved. I mean, we could pre-record this show, but we're kind of trying to be committed to going live on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever platform you're joining us on, which thank you so much for joining us. But basically, we have a provocative question planned, but if you come up with a better one, we will send you a prize, like a sticker book or maybe a tripod, so you can enjoy us on camera at a later date. If there are any sponsors out there that want to send us free stuff, our business address is 2 Mountain View Drive.
Wait. No. Give them your address. You're the one who's been arrested. The police are going to go there anyway, so don't give them my address.
True. My probation officer does make more visits here than I would like to admit. My lovely domicile mate has asked that I not give her address. And since I don't have another address, let's just say that everybody should just hit us up on our DM. Slide into our direct messages, however you'd like to get us, and we'll give you the address.
That sounds great. That sounds good. Okay, so let's see. Without further ado, do we want to pose our first question, or do we have some more business at hand that we need to kind of get out of the way?
No, I think our point of view on the topic of the day. So life throws you curveballs, even in startup life. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think, this coronavirus has just been a very interesting period of life for all of us. I think it's unique in that, I don't know, I constantly feel, this is maybe not as much about business, but a little bit of guilt in staying home. And I know I've got friends that have a friend with a wife that's a nurse and a friend that works in nursing homes, and they're full on 24/7. Their stress is through the roof, and we're told to stay home, and we're making videos. And so there's a little bit, we're doing our job, but this whole thing throws you some curveballs. But I guess what's positive from our perspective is that you can take a little bit of time and reflect on what can you do in your own business that you wouldn't have had time, that you were just going balls to the wall on your daily life, and now you're looking at it a different way. And I know there's one particular thing, just even us doing this, this gets me outside my comfort zone a little bit, and being able to do videos. I look at this, the potential to do this with clients all over the country now, and I never really thought of it before. I thought most of my communication would be through email and phone conversations, and now I guess I'm always a little late to the technology world, but I realize that I can have these kind of conversations face to face with some of my clients wherever they might be. And I don't know if that would have occurred to me, maybe at some point, but if this hadn't happened where I'm having more face to face conversations remotely today.
It's certainly better for us. I mean, you and I have rambled at each other on the phone probably on average about 45 minutes a day since we both quit our jobs and went into, and decided to open our own businesses. And I have found a much more engaging process with you because I see your face.
Yeah. Well, I'm ridiculously attractive, and I understand why I'm just have this magnetism,
I really just want to see my face.
Yeah, exactly. I have my face on the big screen here. No. But no,
I took your face off completely. Your face is not there at all.
There's something about looking at somebody as you talk to them. And I think it's one of the things we're all missing with this, although we go to the grocery store, but we go like this past people,
Yeah.
And it's, now I'm realizing about 3/4 of people, it seems like, now have masks on. So, it is a different time. But
in New York City, I noticed, so Friday afternoon, today we're taping on Monday morning. Friday afternoon was a significant increase in masks. It was a foggy, kind of rainy day on the Upper East Side. And so I noticed almost everybody, literally like 95% of the people had masks on. But I also want to point out that, like 100% of the people on the street were brown and black people. And the truth of the matter was, back to what you were saying about needing to go to work and kind of your and my kind of first world problems of being able to just take an hour out of our day and film a podcast, which is like as if it's a new idea. We, are, well, let me just say this.
I'm like Trump. It's like it's new to me. Hey, whoever knew that the flu could kill like 25 to 50,000 people in a year? Who knew? I didn't know people that. I mean, nobody realized this.
Oh, I think you need a better voice for Trump. I've been thinking about he's just a douche from Queens.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of really good ones. I got to get a Trump. If I'm going to make fun of him this much, I got to get a better Trump voice, right?
Yeah,
it's just the realization when I realized that, oh gosh, I could communicate like this. That's my Trumpism of the day. Oh gosh, I didn't know we could use video to communicate with clients.
Right. What was it that he said right when he got into office? He was like, "Who knew that taxes were so hard?" Whatever. Or healthcare. Who knew healthcare would be so complicated?
Nobody understands, that healthcare is pretty complicated. Nobody understands this.
Hillary Clinton never thought of that in 1991. You know what I mean? Like, and Obama never thought of it in, with the ACA.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyway,
I feel like if it wasn't called Obamacare, he wouldn't have been so adamant about getting rid of it.
Right. Absolutely.
Obamacare. Yeah, if it was just the Affordable Care Act, whatever. Nobody will even think about it. It's just,
Right.
But,
right. And Obama did everything he could to just get that shit passed and make it 1,800 pages, right? I mean, And Biden evidently played at least according to Biden, he played a big role in that too.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I lost my train of thought on something.
Well, you were just giving your point of view on curveballs. I was interested in how you're using the stimulus package, and if your business this week has pivoted towards the PPP or the EIDL.
Yeah, no, it remains to be seen. We're applying for that. With my business partner and I are applying for the PPP, and we'll certainly pursue that. We're a small company of essentially 2 people, and we have some contract employees. But we are looking at this point because we feel like it does seem like, by all accounts, that there's an awful lot of people that are at home that are not working right now, and they're jobless. They're applying for unemployment, and they're looking for some extra income. And we can hire some people, contract employee, commission salespeople, to start approaching some of our potential clients. And so we're pursuing this a little bit more than I think we would have pursued this, or more timely. It's a timely issue for us to take on right now. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. Absolutely. That's a huge pivot. I think that 3 weeks ago, you would have never thought about hiring a commission salesperson, and now you are. And anybody watching this that's at home, you know what I mean? Like interested in, making phone calls for Sticker Book Publishing, our sponsor for the day. Please give Dave a call. You know what I mean?
If you like the idea of selling to schools and enrichment programs and that sort of thing, email me at David@Sticker Book Publishing. It's that easy. And certainly would be interested in talking to you if you'd like to make a little extra money.
So ding, ding, ding. I'm going to ring the bell and get to my just sort of perspective on this so that we can wrap up Act 1. But, I just wanted to say something that I thought was fascinating in this whole have you been watching Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo, sort of talk?
The brotherly love. I love it.
Yes. Yeah. I guess
it's very engaging.
On some level, it inspired us, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely. Hey, that's my brother. No, I love Andrew Cuomo. Well, Mom loves me most. I'm her favorite son. I love that. They got
right, exactly. But they have talked about how we have to pivot as businesses. And I think it's not. I think last week we added another 6.5 million people filing for unemployment on top of the 3 million that filed the week before. So we're pushing 10 million people out of 330 million that are filing for unemployment, and that doesn't include even the people that do you know what I mean? Like, many of the teachers and people that are you know what I mean? Like, doing their best to keep up with their job, and they're salaried, but they won't be for long, and we don't really know how it's going to go, right? So teachers are probably a bad example, but I know that
because they're going to continue to make their money.
Well, they continue to work. I mean, like, God, it's probably, I mean, as a former high school technical theater teacher, and it was in a private school, but it was, you know what I mean? Like, it was a significant portion of my career for 16 years. Before I, pivoted towards startup life. But anyway, they, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard work, and it's probably harder by video conference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, did I read somewhere, we're on Zoom, obviously, and we witnessed the Zoom bombing the other day when we were on a call together, which was really, really quite something, which was...
Explain what that is.
Well,
explain what happened.
You just told me about it. Well, all of a sudden we're being bombed by people coming from the outside. Again, you know more about it. I really haven't read about it other than what you told me about, people bots coming from the outside who had some information on the woman that was was running this was Asian American, and there was all kinds of comments right off the bat to do all for Asians or Chinese people have squinty eyes, and it was like shocking. And I think there were about 1,000 people on this call, and people were obviously distressed. And then the woman from the Chamber of Commerce came on and said, this is not who we are. This is not realizing, I guess, just what was happening, and it wasn't their fault. It was the fault of, I don't know, that people like to.
I think it's artificial intelligence.
People like to mess up. Yeah,
it's artificial intelligence, and anything can be weaponized is really the point. And at least from what I understand, and I know just enough to be dangerous, as you all will learn if you continue to listen to this podcast. But basically, artificial intelligence was reading the woman's face and going in and sort of assessing that she was a Asian American human being, and then making racial slurs about nationalist slurs about that. And essentially, anything can be weaponized, right? Anything can become a weapon.
Right. And I guess, the point I was making about, this is a new technology for me. I did actually over the weekend, I went to a go-to meeting with a few guys in a church group, and I'm like, wow, go-to meeting. I remember that. I didn't even think about that, but I was using that 15, 20 years ago in business. That was probably one of the original ones, and it was just as good. It worked perfectly fine. But the Zoom bombing you mentioned to me, and then I either read an article or saw just a headline. Either it was New York City schools or some California schools or I can't remember, say we're not going to use Zoom anymore. And obviously when you got children on the line, and this was not just a little tease kind of thing that was happening. This was really nasty stuff, and they can't take the chances with kids, which is terrible for.
Yeah, it's the equivalent. It's the equivalent of like a guy running into your second grade classroom with an AR-15.
Yeah, I mean, it's ruining the business. Obviously that can ruin your business.
Not really.
That's terrible, but not quite, but pretty unsettling if you've built this platform up.
Actually, hang on. I got to restate that. That was a really horrible parallel, actually. I mean, nobody died on the SBA.gov, webinar or whatever. But
I will say, to defend you, I get the analogy, though. That's killing something. And just like, when you look at the 10 Commandments, just because you didn't shoot somebody, if you kill their reputation, if you hurt them, whether it be physically, emotionally, mentally, and they commit suicide, what have you. I mean, the fact that, and again, this is a very small scale thing. Zoom will probably get it figured out. But if you do something to kill somebody's reputation or hurt their business so much that people aren't, they lose a $10,000 contract, $100,000 contract, whatever it might be, that's pretty major. It's a pretty major thing.
Technically libel.
Right.
I mean, if you were in a court system, you would be suing for libel. because,
Right.
of those 1,000 or 1,100, I think it was up to like 1,100 business people that were on that call. And by the way, as soon as the comments and the bombing became clear, some of the more educated, I think I had heard it on NPR 2 hours before that Zoom bombing was a thing. And some of us were like, oh, it's just a bot just jumping in, reading her face. It's not actually a human being, but it's coded by a human being. It's invented by a human being. So it's not that artificial intelligence is dangerous. It's that people who have weapons are dangerous. And you can weaponize anything. And so artificial intelligence obviously is something that's been around, and neural learning, and you know what I mean, all the different parts of artificial intelligence are that, you can use it for good and you can use it for bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
The Chinese and the Russian governments are using artificial intelligence to track coronavirus, and the South Korean government is not in any way a demigod, kind of government, but they were able to control those 28 million people through using facial recognition and using QR codes and all these other things that Americans, quote unquote Americans, wouldn't stand for. At least the third of the people in America who voted for Trump or just are more conservative. I don't know whether my mom would stand for it. But the truth of the matter is that my dad would, you know what I mean? And I would, and you would. We'd be excited to know that we had the virus and that we ought to quarantine further. We shouldn't, that we need somebody else to, like Eileen, like we need somebody else to buy our groceries for us because we would know immediately that we were in a high risk category.
Right. Right. What I think is interesting about it is, and we talked about this a little bit, is just that some people set their lives to do good, to make other people's lives better, like these doctors and nurses and medical professionals now. But you could also say people that during this pandemic are going out and delivering groceries and helping people. And some people set their sights on creating chaos. And we laughed about that, seeing that that's my nickname. But, their sole purpose is to create chaos in the world. You could say that would be Putin or different governments of the world, but also people that just feel like, create viruses that mess up people's computers or Zoom bomb, and it's not really understandable to people like you and I that this is what you want to make your life about, but it is fascinating to me that there's always going to be a need for people to, cyber police, because there's always going to be idiots that are doing this kind of stuff.
That's well said. All right, in the interest of moving on, I'm going to pose our provocative question of the day. And at this point, maybe if we produce this thing, we'll have some sort of a sound cue, the provocative question of the day today for Chaos. You'll get to go first, and then I'll answer the provocative question of the day. What kind of business would you have if you weren't running Sticker Book Publishing?
That's a great question, and I should have thought about that a little bit ahead of time. I'm not really sure. I think obviously I enjoy working with kids. I probably would have a startup. I probably told you about this, that I had an idea for a site that was like a giving site that people could go and learn about different charitable organizations, different types, and all these different categories. And I haven't thought about this for a long time, but you would be able to just kind of say, this is what's of interest to me, and go and learn about it, and then be able to place donations right through it, so you can learn about that organization. So maybe something in the charitable giving.
What about, I thought you were going to say drink water to give water.
Well, that's obviously, a charitable organization. I mean, I'm involved obviously in water and maybe being involved, but I thought as a startup, I don't know, would I start a world water organization, or would I go work with somebody else like a Charity Water or a Dig Deep Water?
But I mean, you attempted a business model before this, which was kind of more like selling knives, which we talked about in the previous episode, about your ability to go door to door or face to face or phone call to phone call and get people to buy what you're selling. And I think that is one of your massive talents. And I mean, you went as far as making beer cozy sleeves for water bottles that you could chug.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was Drink Water, as you mentioned, that Drink Water to Give Water was a startup business where we used a reusable filter water bottle. And I think about that. I mean, I still talk about it with people about the waste, I think just in New York City where you are, and how many plastic water bottles get thrown in the garbage, then don't get recycled, and the millions of tons of plastic waste, but also just what it takes to create that plastic and the waste of water that goes into creating a bottle that holds, 10 ounces, 12, 16 ounces of water. It's just insane, absolutely insane. And then, my passion for it was, and the reason the name was Drink Water to Give Water, was that save some of that money and pass that money off to places in Africa and other places in the world where people do not have access. It's not about even being able to get tap water. They don't, can't get to water in where they live, and they have to sometimes, travel 3-4 miles a day, 5 miles a day, just to be able to get ground surface water, which is infected, disgusting. Animals are bathing and defecating in it, and this is their water source. So
and aren't there companies that are still doing that, kind of dealing with water insecurity that you know of, that you kind of recommend?
Oh, yeah. Well, the one big one that I did a lot of work with now is pulled all their operations to this country. That's Dig Deep Water out of Los Angeles. And they actually work with the vulnerable, mostly in New Mexico, the Native American Navajo Nation, where there's still actually thousands of Americans, which is shocking, that don't have access to clean water. But there's a number of other ones. I had worked with one out of New York City called Charity Water, which is a great organization, do most of their work in the developing countries of the world, and in South America, Africa, India. And there's a number of other really good ones. Water.org is the one that a lot of people know from Matt Damon. Is kind of the face of that organization.
Another mass hole.
Yep, another mass hole. Exactly. The Will Hunting, guy. Love that movie. Boston.
Yeah. I worked with a company. I saw a lecture by an amazing CEO for the company, Thirst. And he's a really cool guy. His name is slipping my mind at the moment, but he's a super guy. And so for all of you out there that are still listening, which I'm sure is a diminishing number, we highly recommend that water insecurity is, if you're looking for a cause. My mom said to me yesterday in an incredibly difficult conversation about do not resuscitate kind of topics, which I do not want to talk about any more than I already have with her yesterday. Wow. But basically she said to me, I want to send $1,000 to the nurses. And I don't know which hospital to pick, because it seems like the Princeton Hospital is probably well enough funded. And I was telling her about Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's been sending hundreds of pizzas to hospitals around the city. And do you know what I mean? He's sort of going on Twitter and saying, tweet me if you can pick them up in the next half hour. And then he gets a tweet back from, Dr. Smith, and Dr. Smith is standing at the door when the pizza guy pulls up, you know what I mean? Because he knows Dr. Smith can go back and walk into the COVID place, which obviously you don't want the pizza guy to do. So, okay. Again, in the interest of moving on, I'm trying to keep an eye on the time, just for
Thank you for doing that. I'm not.
It marches on. That's okay. I can take that role on until we get an intern who's very interested in making this podcast even better. So, what kind of business would I have? What kind of business would I have if we're not seamless integrated dynamics? I'm pretty sure I'd be teaching. I mean, the truth of the matter was, I was a high school technical theater teacher and film production teacher. I enjoyed teaching film a lot more than I enjoyed teaching technical theater, because historically, and you can see my background and my resume on, and all the many videos that I've made on YouTube and things like that. But, and there's a great website, actually, charleskirbydesigns.com, which kind of has a bunch of films that the kids made, and a bunch of, different projects that I did in my resume. But essentially, I would be teaching film production.
And that's where also your idea for Lightbox came out of, being in theater design, right? I mean, that's
absolutely. So so Lightbox is an invention of mine, late 90s, using fiber optic cable and LEDs now, that light scale model box. So, set designers and architects and people like that build this little, sort of maquette or charrette, depending on what country you're in. And essentially the lighting designers or the, architectural consultants or, like the electrical engineers just sit around the meeting and watch the, sort of physical space be addressed, but not the sort of lighting, not the ethereal space being addressed. Right. And so I started using fiber optic instruments to basically recreate the scene for the theater in scale. So 1 to 25, a quarter inch equals a foot, or half inch equals a foot, like 1 to 50, 1 to 24, as they say in the UK. And
they're so cool. Do you have any still like laying around? Do you have any that you have?
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, I have all the materials ready for the Charles Kirby Museum. And I'm hoping it'll be called the Charles Kirby Memorial Museum, because I don't want to actually go or be a part of it, because I would be way too annoying in setting it up. I want like a real museum curator to do it. But yes, I do have a not so small storage unit in Long Island City. I own no real estate. I live in this apartment by the kindness of my wonderful girlfriend, and I don't even own a car. All I own is debt and a pile of light boxes, and then
but they are very cool.
Yeah, exactly. You can go to clightbox.com. It's still for sale, and I sold one to University of North Carolina, Charlotte. You know what I mean? Like this fall, I sell 2 or 3 a year. They're not a cheap item. I never was able to get the price down. I was never able to scale it, basically, as a startup. But I didn't shut it down. I never had the heart to shut it down.
Right. Well, and there's still people coming to you, so your get rich quick scheme is going to take off at some point.
Not my forte. But what I'm doing now with Seamless Integrated Dynamics, which we call Cindy with an S, and we hope you will too, is basically a light box but in virtual reality.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We'll talk more about that another time, I'm sure.
In
the nature of time, let's move on to, let's just close up by talking about how, we talked a little bit about pivoting, but I'd like to say something about startup life. I attend a lot of pitch sessions in New York City and in San Francisco when I'm there. And I enjoy deeply the community of startup people who may or may not be listening to this, and the friendships that I've built in the last 3 years since Cindy, became a sort of thing. And what I've heard a number of times is that you need to pivot quarterly. And I mean, literally, right? If we were making a lot more money, we would be required by the federal government and the city and state that we live in to report our quarterly earnings, right? Like a publicly traded company would. And essentially, so you sort of look at I've been heavily recommended, and it has made a serious impression on me that, every, 4 times a year, you look at your income, you look at your revenue, you look at your cost of goods, you look at your, like different sort of things that KPI, right? Key performance indicators about how your business is doing. And then essentially you pivot, you say like, okay, well, over the last quarter, 3 months, 90 days, we tried this strategy, and then now we're going to try a different strategy. And the truth is that for me, 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago, I thought that was embarrassing. I thought that was admitting that I was somehow wrong with the previous strategy. And let me give you an example. So I woke up January 1st, 2020, and I thought, okay, actually, wait, let me take one more quarter back. August of 2019, you and I met at a beautiful Airbnb where Catherine and I were staying, and we decided that the thing that Sticker Book Publishing and that Seamless Integrated Dynamics needed was marketing. Yep. And you basically had no social presence for Sticker Book Publishing. And I basically had, my own personal, I had leveraged my own personal network, my theater and film friends to be interested in Cindy, but I hadn't figured out how to make any money doing it. And we still haven't figured out how to make a lot of money doing it, but we're making a little bit of money, like, just very similar to SBP. And essentially I committed to consult for SBP to do basically every day, put up a sticker for Twitter, on Instagram and on Facebook. And basically, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, we continue this practice, which I think is absolutely awesome, of putting up a person every day. Do you know who you put up most recently?
I did not put anybody up over the weekend on, let's see, the last few we put up Jesse Jackson. We had the conversation the other day about never look down on somebody unless you're giving them a hand up,
Florence Nightingale.
And then Florence Nightingale kicked it off, a little while ago when we started. We put the last day of Women History Month, which I think kind of got looked past because of what was going on with the coronavirus. And we just wanted to give a little shout out to her for her work as, the founder of modern day nursing. But it's always an inspirational type person like that. On Martin Luther King Day,
Can you show people what a sticker looks like? I don't think you've done that yet. Do you have a page of the book? Any page of any open book?
Yeah. So, these are kind of some samples of the stickers, and the idea is obviously, people that there's Oprah right there. You can see her.
Okay, but I mean, there's also Ruby Bridges.
Ruby Bridges, exactly.
I mean, I'm just saying, there's it's a really diverse. It's not just Oprah and Florence Nightingale. It's not like the obvious icons.
No. I mean, if you look at just the cover, for instance, of our book right here too, you got Walt Disney, but you also have Gandhi and Marie Curie. She's one that we'll probably put up here in the next day or two, because obviously as a scientist, I've been quoting her with my daughter being just a little anxious. This is bothering her. She's a little out of sorts. And Marie Curie's got a great quote that says, nothing is to be feared, it's just to be understood. And I think that's a great quote for a kid to, say, just protect yourself, be informed and take care of yourself, but don't have fear. Don't worry. I like that. But those are the types of people that are in this book. I think, we'll do this in a future thing, just like we'll talk about Cindy and some of your other endeavors, that I think the people that are in our book are just interesting people. They're inspirational to not only kids, but to all people. So
yeah. I'm sorry. My knee, my titanium kney is indicating that it needs a different position. So
okay.
I'm gonna try to.
Well, we're probably close to wrapping up too, because both of us are getting old, and my sciatica is going to start acting up, and
You're very sweet.
We're a mess.
I know you have a couple ACL replacements yourself. So, okay. So let's wrap up. And I hope that people have learned a little bit about startup life. I hope that people are still listening. And I severely, I critically doubt that anybody's still listening. But love you for doing so. And let's see. I think we wrote something at the end. Right. That's not surprisingly all we have to say about startup life and pivoting. And so we'll probably cover it again. But all of our viewers, due to overwhelming boredom, we're going to now jump to Instagram and pretend to be influencers in the startup space and talk about our kids.
Absolutely.
Then we'll go live on Twitter to elaborate on a list of Trumpisms and his deficiencies, because there's always more to talk about that. And we hope that you will enjoy this commercial from our sponsor of the day, Sticker Book Publishing.
Oh, we're going back to Sticker Book Publishing. Fantastic.
Well, somebody's got to do a commercial.
So today we are offering the Icon sticker book, which is the one I was showing you before, and just give you a little sneak peek at one that we're just about to publish on Legends. And this one actually,
I haven't seen that one.
All sorts of people, from Marilyn Monroe to Alfred Hitchcock, and you got Desi and Lucy. All kinds of people that the target of that one is really more seniors. We've found a little niche with the senior living community. And right now we wish we could be getting them into their hands, because they're probably very bored in their rooms. But this is one of the ways that we've pivoted a little bit as well, as that was part of our conversation, that it's enjoyable for seniors, we find, just as much as young people, as kids. So It's that cross-generational thing we'll talk more about in a future topic. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time, Chaos.
Thank you for yours, Chucky Java.
Anytime. And I look forward to hearing you and seeing you, but yet staying socially distanced next time.
Absolutely. Stay away from me. Peace.